The big hurdle for me was telling my family about my living as a woman now, living as a transgendered woman. What I did is I went to a friend's art opening and they took this wonderful picture of me. And so I had that picture blown up or made into a photograph. I wrote in a little note in the picture saying that my name is Pearl. This is how I look, and I closed the thing. I packed and I wrote addresses and I put stamps on it and I mailed it all. Then I followed it up with a telephone call. I waited until I thought everybody had gotten the pictures. I called my mother first and I said, "Ma," she said, "Yes." I said, "Did you get my picture?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "What was this all about?" Like, see that. I said, "Well, Ma, did you get it or not?" She's beating around the bush. She would have loved to have said, "No, I didn't get it," and maybe this will go away, but it's not going away. And she said, "I got it. What is wrong?" And I said, "Nothing is wrong." I said, "I wanted my family to know what's going on with me and include you in my life." And I said, "I'm telling all of you." She said, "Well, don't tell your oldest brother." I said, "Too late, Mama. I've sent him the same picture." "Well, how about your sister?" "I sent her a picture too." "And I assume you sent Junior a picture." "Yes." So that was that. That's how I came out to them. Didn't hear anything after that. And then a few months later, this was about 2002. My bell rings. I'm here with my lover. We're in the bed. My lover is no clothes on. I go to the intercom and I said, "Who is it?" And my nephew says, "It's Todd." I said, "Todd?" And grandmother's here with me. And she says, "Bernie, open the door." And she's looking at me and she don't know what to say. And I know she's taking it all in. And she said, "Well, Todd's having a dinner party for us tonight." And she said, "And you're expected to be there." I said, "Oh, you want me to come?" I said, "I'll be there. I'll be there." And I came I dressed, and I don't know what possessed me to wear a blonde wig. I felt it. And when I came in, I found this a little endearing. My mother said, "Oh, why didn't you wear the other hair?" I like that in some kind of odd way. It was like she liked that look. So anyway, things were going well. My nephew cooked a beautiful dinner and we sat. I met a lot of the other relatives. Everybody was a little stiff and a little awkward because, I'm meeting them for the first time. They realize I'm transgendered. My nephew is so happy to have my mother and me there, but I see he's still a little nervous, but sweet, sweet man. After we ate dinner, I went into the living room and started talking with some of the people. I'm feeling more comfortable now. And then all of a sudden, I hear this voice saying, "Bernie, what is all this?" And it sounded familiar. And when I spun around, I see that look in my mother's eyes of like back when I was a kid and she was like a little drunk. And she looks at me and she said, "What is this?" And she strikes my breast. And I said, "Mama, what are you doing?" And I realized that she's drunk. And that's when she said, she came in close and she said, "I just want you to know that West Palm Beach is not big enough for Pearl and the Bennetts. So she's getting a little drunker, and I know she could be violent. So I got up and I said, it's time. My gut feeling was telling me it's time to leave. The party's over. And I went into the kitchen and I thanked my nephew. And I said, Todd, thank you. The dinner was wonderful. I said, thank you for inviting me. And I said, I'm not going to be spending the night. I walk out the door and I don't say anything to my mother because I don't want her, I just want to get out of there as quietly as possible. And when she heard the door close, she realized I had left the room or left the apartment, and she opens the door, she flings the door open, and she yells, Bernie, get back here. I don't look back. And I walk to the elevator. It's at the end of the hall, and I press the down button, and she's yelling and she's screaming. And the door's open, and she said, come back here now. And doors close, and I can hear her still screaming. And down I go. And she called the next morning and said, didn't we have a great time? And I said, Mama? She said, are you coming? We're going to do something tonight? I said, no, I'm not coming. And she couldn't understand. And I realized then she was in a blackout that night. She didn't remember anything. When I left that apartment, I felt like I had been ostracized from my family, and that I no longer had a childhood home to go back to. I no longer saw my mother in person while she was alive after that visit. Even though we spoke on the phone almost every day, and we made peace with each other. I forgave her, and I knew I loved her. I was able to tell her that before she died. And at the funeral, it seemed like I had come. I remembered that conversation we had at my nephew's house, that West Palm Beach wasn't big enough for the Pearl and the Bennetts. Here I stand in front of my childhood home in West Palm Beach. The home of the Bennetts. And certainly there's more than enough room